What does fulfillment look like in all these areas of your life? And where are you not experiencing that? And if there's one of these dominoes that we could knock over first, which one would you choose, knowing that if that were to be a 10 out of 10, everything else would feel so much easier?
Welcome to Get Unstuck and On Target, the weekly podcast that offers senior leaders insights and strategies to not only lead with confidence and vision, but also to achieve groundbreaking results. I'm your host, Mike O'Neill. I coach top-level executives on the power of ethical leadership to forge teams to be as united as they are effective. In each episode, join me for insightful conversations with leaders just like you, providing practical advice to help you get unstuck and propel you and your company forward. Let's get started. Have you ever wondered why some leaders, despite their success, still feel unfulfilled? Today's episode explores this question and the hidden barriers that often hold high achievers back. I'm joined by Andrew Anderson, a life transformation coach who guides leaders to break through limiting beliefs and find true purpose. What struck me is his approach to self-discovery, helping clients let go of what no longer serves them so they can step into a more meaningful life. This conversation really resonated with what I've observed in my years of coaching. Often, leaders get stuck not due to a lack of success, but because they need a fresh perspective on fulfillment. Andrew and I discuss practical ways to gain that perspective and create a life that feels as good as it looks. I'm Mike O'Neill, and this is the Get Unstuck and On Target podcast. Joining me today is Andrew Anderson, an author, speaker, and life transformation coach who empowers elite business owners to break through barriers and achieve true fulfillment. Through discovery, awareness, and choice, he helps clients uncover their own answers and make impactful life changes. Today, we'll delve into Andrew's journey and learn how he helps leaders find fulfillment and overcome limiting beliefs. Welcome, Andrew.
It's great to be with you, Mike. Thanks for having me. And let's thank the listener. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them, and we're here to serve today.
We are here to serve, and thank you for saying that. We've been so blessed to have as many listeners as we have. So thank you. Thank you for that shout out to them. You know, I introduced our time together about overcoming barriers to fulfillment. I'd just like to kind of jump in, if you don't mind, and that is, in your role as a coach, what do you find is the biggest obstacles for high-performing business owners to encounter when they're really trying to strive that sense of personal fulfillment?
I'm going to throw out some fancy words right at the beginning, and I'll define them. Unconscious incompetence. They don't know, right? Unconscious incompetence. What they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And they think that this is as good as life gets, and yet they know something's missing, but man, it's really hard to find out what that is. And so they just keep doing what they do best, which is achievement, fulfillment, just killing it in their business. So unconscious incompetence. They don't know. They don't know.
I don't know that phrase, but let me quote from your LinkedIn profile. And this is in the About section. It reads, "You're a business owner who believes in God and you're having massive success, yet something's missing. You can't figure out what's preventing you from achieving the highest level of fulfillment in your life. You're stuck and it's killing you."
Yeah.
That's a powerful, that two sentences. Back to that two words you just introduced us to. They don't know.
Yeah.
So how do you help guide them and to get that sense of awareness?
Well, I ask the questions that no one else has the courage to ask because, like high achievers can be intimidating and people don't want to challenge them. And so I'm not afraid of anyone. And I thank my father for that. But I see someone and I know, I just have this intuition. It's a gift that I think I've been given. I see things in them that no one else maybe can see. And I just ask the questions that are direct enough that will help them open up and start to tell me some things that maybe they haven't been telling anyone. Powerful questions. That's where it starts.
I know in my role as a coach how powerful questions can make a huge difference. Can I go back to something you just said? And that's, you said you can attribute this to your father. In what way?
Oh man, I have written a book that has become an international bestseller, and I have about 14 other books that I desire to write. And I felt really strongly a few months back that before you write any of those other books, Andrew, you need to start writing your father's biography. And I have a remarkable mother and father, and someone will write my mother's someday, but I just feel called to write my father's. He is, as Og Mandino says, the greatest salesman in the world. And I literally believe that book was written about my father because sales is about loving and influencing people. And I've watched my father in his entire career. He's now 76 years old, 75, 76 years old. But I watched him forever just love and influence people in sales. And now he continues to do it with everyone that he's around. And when you love and have a desire to influence and serve people, there's no room for fear. And so when you see something, you go for it and you do it. And I've watched my dad do that his whole life, and I'm learning how to do that as well.
You said that you're learning how to do that. Is that willingness to speak into power, is that something that comes natural, or did you have to develop that ability to say and ask questions that no one else dares?
I'm so grateful that you asked that, because people often say to me, you're a natural born speaker, you're a natural born coach, you're like, you've been like this, like I can just tell it's in you. And if you read my book, you'll hear this story of me at Centennial High School, 14 years old, a freshman, and scared of everybody, not able to stand up for my beliefs, feeling alone, a true introvert without friends, walking around the halls by myself. And the lowest of lows that I share in my book is standing in the stall of a bathroom on the toilet seat so that no one will be able to identify whose shoes are in this bathroom, sobbing by myself, so depressed, 1999, no one to talk to. And we're not talking about these things at that time. There's not, depression and anxiety. Like, that's just not a thing. I was hurting so bad. And when I tell that story, people are shocked because they probably assume that I was just the one that had all the friends and did all the things and had the girlfriends or whatever. And yet I was very insecure as a 14, 15-year-old teenage boy. And I had to learn, and I'm still learning, how to step into what I believe are my unique abilities to serve.
We're continuing on this theme of serving, and in doing so, it would sound to me you're serving your clients because you're willing to speak to things that they may not have even thought about before.
Yeah.
Help them understand that. Let's start with your clients. You choose to work with high achieving leaders. Right. What is it about high achieving leaders that makes them an ideal client for you?
Well, I just love their tenacity. I love their intelligence. I love their commitment. They have strong values. They've gotten to a point in life where they have taken everything they've been given and created an organization or a business, and they've created things that are building our communities. They're impacting our world, and they are really, really good at it. And I love coaching these kinds of people, because if we can't figure out how to help them truly find fulfillment and get out of this place of unconscious incompetence, I mean, they don't know what they don't know, but all they know is they're stuck, but they don't know why. When we can help them get out of that, the trickle-down effect within their businesses and their organizations and their families is huge. Because when they figure this out, by nature, everything and everyone else will follow them as well.
You're open with the question as to what might be the obstacle. Why have you found that they oftentimes can't figure it out on their own?
Because they're used to figuring everything else out on their own. They're used to just like having the answers. And from a perspective of like eternity, like I think God just gives us all something that makes us have to depend on others, because we're not meant to be here on earth as independent, solo achieving people. We are meant to rely upon one another. And so these people have such incredible strengths that there's things that we all have that once we admit that we need help, we then create dependency with someone else in these interdependent relationships where we now can grow together. And that's what we're meant to do as the human family. We're meant to go together, not alone. And so these people, they're imperfect like the rest of us. Like we all need help. And yet they've been so successful at not needing help and doing it on their own that this is the one thing that they got to figure out.
What's kind of crossed my mind, Andrew, here is that we're describing, and this may very well be describing people who are watching or listening right now, and that is they have achieved phenomenal external achievements. But what I'm hearing you describe is, but for them to really get this sense of fulfillment, if those are external achievements, they need to experience some inner transformation.
And that's exactly what it is.
Got you. So fulfillment, that's the word. Barriers to fulfillment. How do you define the term fulfillment?
Well, I actually flip that around and I invite those that I work with to define that, because my idea of fulfillment is living my life mission in a way that I can stand before my maker and say that I gave everything he gave me to help me be this person and do the things that I felt called to do. And everybody has a different calling and they have different things to give. So I think of, a life of fulfillment is one where we, at our deathbed or before our maker, judgment bar, whatever that might be, or even tomorrow morning when I wake up, I can say, yeah, yesterday I played all out. Like I gave what I could in a way that I have no regrets.
I'm going to generalize here. We're talking about highly successful leaders who, to the outside world, have achieved everything.
Right.
But going back to your about section, but you're stuck and it's killing you. They may not even know that they're stuck. But what you said, I think, is fulfillment for you might be different than for them, but might fulfillment up to this point have been these external achievements? They thought that was going to be, okay?
Yeah. Yep. And yet there's still something missing. And so what we look at is, okay, you have a life from the outside looking in that's remarkable. And yet it doesn't feel as good as it looks, does it? And you've always been able to go to money to solve problems within the business. You can hire or leverage anything out that will allow you to grow the business. And yet there are problems that you have that money can't solve. You can't throw money at a 16-year-old child and have a relationship. You can't buy your way out of a lack of intimacy with your spouse, right? You can't even use money to take care of your neglect of your health. Like money can't, you have to solve that. And if someone's in a place of a faith crisis, you can't buy your way out of that either. And so what we find is, what does fulfillment look like in all these areas of your life? And where are you not experiencing that? And if there's one of these dominoes that we could knock over first, which one would you choose, knowing that if that were to be a 10 out of 10, everything else would feel so much easier? That's where we start.
Now, it sounds to me that you typically start with maybe the biggest domino.
It might be the biggest, but I just asked that question. It may be the smallest, like the Dave Ramsey, right? Like the debt snowball. Like, what's the one that if we can have a win here, then it's going to have the ability to compound and grow and give you the confidence that you can have a win in all the other areas of your life as well.
So it sounds to me you let the clients choose what that domino is, but you recognize based on your experience that the power of the domino is not the single domino. It's when it's lined up to next is what it could kind of set in motion.
You got it. All right. I want you to think of like the greatest coaches in the world of sports, and they come with these athletes and they're just, they're full of potential and talent. And the coach can't run the plays that he was running with the previous all-star. or the previous lineup, right? He has to match the individual skills and abilities according to what that person desires most to become. If Aaron Rodgers wants to be a catcher, like, that doesn't work because he plays center field and he hits home runs, and that's not his thing. And so the greatest coaches see something in their players and they ask them, do you want to become what I see? And is that in alignment with your goals and desires as well? Because if not, then what I'm really doing is I'm serving my agenda as a coach, and I'm trying to create a roster that makes me look good rather than my all-star. And by the way, in the end, who gets paid more, the all-star or the coach?
All-star does.
That's right. And by the way, when team is losing, who gets fired first, the all-star or the coach?
Well said, the coach.
The coach. So I never want it to be about me. I want it to be about them. And if I start coaching from a place of agenda, then I'm really just a consultant telling you what to do rather than a coach, which is asking you where you want to be, who you're going to take with you, why it's so important, and what the ramifications will be in the long run.
When I introduced you, we were talking about limiting beliefs and how those can really hold back. Can you, for those who are not familiar with the concept of limiting beliefs, what, in your experience, can you give us some examples of what they are and how they are affecting or have affected your clients?
Right. So let's take this one, for example. We'll call him Dan. Dan is a 7+ figures CEO, and he is loved and respected. He shows up in the workplace in a way that everybody just is endeared by him. And he's got a relationship with his child at home who hates him. And he believes that he will never be as successful as a parent as he will be as a CEO. And so he just keeps doing what he's good at and finding fulfillment, right, within the workplace to compensate for what is missing at home. And that limiting belief is, I will never be as good of a father as I am an executive. So there's an example.
So if you would, let us see behind the curtain.
Yeah.
If Dan comes to that realization that that's something he wants to work on, he somehow has accepted that he would never be as good a father as he is as a CEO. How does one in your role help Dan address that?
So what I do is I pull on that thread, and that thread is it's the golden thread, and it has weaved itself through his entire life. And what we end up finding is that there were unconscious decisions that were made in his early developmental years about his ability to show up. And what we're going to find are some very impactful events in his childhood or young adulthood where he felt things that created decisions and beliefs that began to program him, which meant I have to earn achievement. I have to earn respect. I have to earn love. And by the way, if you're trying to earn and achieve your way to fulfillment in the home, it's never going to come. It is the least rewarding experience on a day-to-day basis. I mean, 90% of the time you feel like you're failing. Then every now and then there's these glimpses of hope. Whereas in the workplace, you can be killing it 90% of the time and feeling like you want to throw in the towel 10% of the time. And that's amazing. It's the exact opposite. And so when we find these root cause events and decisions that he has made that created all these beliefs and emotions that are becoming self-fulfilling prophecies with him and his child, we just use some very simple neuroscience techniques that I'm certified in, that I've been doing for, years and years with hundreds of people. And we create new beliefs. We let go of old neural pathways that no longer serve us. Just like we can wipe a hard drive, God made our brains, what we say is neuroplastic. Like there's neuroplasticity there. Every other organ of your body can be swapped out. You can get a prosthetic leg. You can't get a prosthetic brain or get a brain from someone else. So God made our brains such that we can change them. And that's what I do. We let go of old beliefs and decisions. So there's room to create new ones. So you can feel something you've never felt before and have a life that feels way better than it even looks from the outside looking in. That's what everybody wants. They want to feel that their life is as good or better than what everybody thinks it is.
Andrew, I asked guests to share an example where a client got stuck, and you anticipated that question in the example of Dan.
Yeah.
Might another situation come to mind that would illustrate how either you or clients got stuck, and what did it take to get unstuck?
Right. So let's talk about Stephanie. And Stephanie has succeeded for almost 2 decades in her career. She's nearing the end. And this is an interesting place to be. She has a father who is nearing the end, meaning he's in his 90s and he has dementia. And he has succeeded as a professor and has actually lived on campus from the time she was a little girl up until today. They still let him live on this campus of this well-known university in this country, America, if anyone's listening outside of this country. And she can't come to grips with the fact that she's still not accepted by her father because she pursued this entrepreneurial route while he pursued the academic route. And no amount of achievement or money, she could never prove to her father, right, that she was good enough. And she comes to me thinking that hopefully she'll be able to say something or do something to change this with him. And you already know, and I hope the listener does as well, that we can't do that. We can't help somebody change someone else's mind or how they feel about you. What we can do is we can get Stephanie into this place of peace where she no longer feels like, in order for her to be whole and to have fulfillment, that she is dependent upon her father's approval. And as soon as we gave that little girl permission to let go of her father's opinions, then she was able to travel back home and be with her dad and her mom and her siblings who all, supposedly hate her. And it's okay. It doesn't bother her anymore. And she can allow them to be who they are and have their opinions and feel good about the life that she has lived up to this point and not be at the, that victim mentality of, I have to be somebody different. And for her, that was far greater than anything she'd ever achieved and the money that she had made with her business.
And you used the term golden thread a few minutes ago, and you've given us 3 examples, one of which being you, that goes back to childhood.
Right.
By which, when you begin to understand what could very well be, I'm not sure the proper term, the root of this, you can begin reprogramming kind of that thought process. Let's fast forward. You're working with clients that they have identified that the dominoes are really falling into place.
Yeah.
As people begin to experience fulfillment in new ways, it would seem to me it doesn't mean your job is done. It could very well, it opens up new possibilities. Does that describe some of your experiences with clients?
Absolutely. I want you to imagine that one of these clients is trying to climb a mountain. This is figurative, right? Not literal. And they come to me and they say, Andrew, I've tried to get up to the peak over and over and over again. And I need you to help me get there. And most clients come to a coach saying, I want to achieve something that I haven't been able to achieve. Help me get there. And most coaches say, all right, let's go. Let's make sure you have the tools and resources and let's go. If they go to a therapist, the therapist is going to say, let's talk about why you're not there. And what I do is, instead of talking about why they're not there or how to get there, we figure out, what is it that you really want? And what I find is most people don't actually want to climb that mountain and get to that peak. They're carrying something that is making them feel like they have to climb that mountain and get to that peak. Limiting beliefs, negative emotions, past traumas, anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, all this stuff, not good enough, not lovable. And when I give them permission to let go of all that, sometimes they'll say to me, oh my gosh, I don't want to climb that peak. I want to climb that one over there. Or you know what? I want to free dive. I want to go the exact opposite direction. I just never knew I could because I was carrying all this baggage. And so most people are actually moving away from what they don't want rather than moving toward what they do. And they don't know what they want because they're stuck in what they don't want. And when you give them permission to let go of what they don't want, then we get to create something they've never had before. It's a beautiful process to have a clean slate, a brand new canvas, this fertile soil that's been weeded and ready to grow something new. So you're right. We end up creating something that they've never created before.
You just used the term, you give them permission, and I may be stepping all over the practice here, but in doing so, it sounds to me that they in turn give themselves permission to do these things.
They just sometimes have to let somebody else give themselves that permission to give themselves permission, which is what children need. And I know this, some people might not like to hear this, but we're all just children. We're working around with a brain that's been programmed. 95 to 99% of who we are, our personal realities, which is our personality, 95 to 99% of that has been there since we were 9 years old. And yet we're pretending like we're not. But we feel that way when we get in fights and arguments with those we love most. And so when we give that 9-year-old permission to just learn and let go of the things that aren't serving you, then all of a sudden, like, nothing matters like it used to. We can let go of things and we can start afresh and let everyone else be a 9-year-old and not have to fight battles that aren't worth fighting.
I know that the time that we dedicate to a podcast episode, it's totally arbitrary. The average podcast length is about half an hour. And what I would want to make sure we do is, before we wrap up, as you kind of reflect on this conversation thus far, one, is there anything you want to share that we have not discussed?
Yes. If something that Mike or I said today struck a chord with you, and you know that there's more, listening isn't enough. I invite you to take action. Not tomorrow, not next year. I want you to take action right now. And whether it's Mike or me or anyone else in your life, I invite you to take action and reach out to someone right now and say, hey, I felt this thing. I listened to this podcast. I believe that things can be different. And just reach out and let that person hold that space with you. And if you need massive transformation, I can do that. And if you need a little bit of transformation, I can do that too. But let somebody help you. Reach out. Don't wait. If you know that there's more and you're feeling like you can do something and you must do something about it, reach out to someone right now.
Andrew, this has been a powerful conversation. As we start to close out this segment, I do have a question for the leaders who are, in fact, listening in, and that is, why do people choose to follow your lead? Is it out of obligation, or do they truly believe in your vision? Leadership is about clarity, confidence, and creating practical solutions that drive real results. So I'm going to echo what Andrew just said, and that is, I invite our listeners to reflect on how you can lead with purpose, inspiring those you lead through shared values and a sense of meaningful mission. Andrew, thank you so much for your insights today. If listeners want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Just find me on social media, Andrew L. Anderson.
You are pretty much everywhere So just for those who are listening to this while driving, don't worry. When you go back, these links to how to reach out to you will be in the show notes. Your insights, I know we just barely scratched the surface, but they have been invaluable. Thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Mike, for holding this space for everybody. And I want to end where I started. I want to give gratitude to the listener. You matter. You have something inside you that this world needs. And if you have felt inspired to make a change and do something different, please reach out now.
You made reference to the listener. I'm humbled to say back to you, we do get statistics on where are our listeners. And we know that we have listeners in well over 50 countries, which is staggering. Here, you and I are in the United States. But the issues that you've raised have universal appeal. I want to thank you, and I want to thank our subscribers for tuning in. And I hope that today's discussion here with Andrew will provide you with some insights to help you get unstuck and on target. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Get Unstuck and On Target. I hope you've gained insights to help you lead with confidence and drive your organization forward. Remember, at Bench Builders, we're committed to your success, your leadership excellence, and your strategic growth. If you've enjoyed our conversation today, please leave a review, rate, and subscribe to keep up with our latest episodes. This show really grows when listeners like you share it with others. Who do you know who needs to hear what we talked about today? Until next time, I encourage you to stay focused on the target and continue to break new ground on your leadership path.